welcome back to Black Hair Tree. We're nearing the end of the year and it's been a great reading year for me. Now it's time for my November reads, and as you can see, my journal is getting pretty full. I calculated that I only have room for 3 spreads per remaining month, so things get a bit crammed for here on out. I'm starting with my November monthly page. These pages don't serve any real purpose beyond being fun to make. I just love playing with beautiful images. If you're new to my channel, the paper I use here is regular office copy paper that I soak in coffee for a vintage look. On this particular sheet, I printed a letter in a handwriting font before soaking it. I'm a fan of Oscar Wilde's old letters for this purpose. When I fasten paper into my journal, I use a tape roller for the straight edges and a glue stick for the torn edges, so everything lies smooth. The images I use come from Pinterest, and I attach those with the tape roller as well, since it keeps the paper pages from buckling. For each month, I pick images that reflect the season. November in Sweden is very dark and gloomy, so instead of matching that, I leaned into a cozy vibe instead. I also add some fake vintage paper from a notepad I got online just to mix things up a bit. I think you can find things like it on Amazon, for example. I always include a quote on my monthly page. This year it's all Oscar Wilde, which is my theme for the 2025 journal. If you've seen my 2026 setup video, you know I'm going in a totally different direction next year. I also use rub-on stickers, my absolute favorite. They blend into the page beautifully in a way regular stickers don't. But I do add a few regular stickers too, just for extra layering. and of course some stamping. I try to place something hard under the page because my journal is getting bulky and it's uneven, but the stamp still didn't come out that well. I'm choosing to believe it adds to the vintage effect. Now that the monthly page is done, it's time for the books. I had to plan carefully to fit everything into 3 spreads. I don't love cramming them in, but here we are. You might be able to glimpse that despite my channel name, I don't have black hair. I have pink hair. Black Hair Tree is a reference to the poem Starry Night by Anne Sexton, which references Van Gogh's painting of the same name. Since my channel mixes literature and art, it felt fitting. First up is Freefall by Letta Blake. Letta Blake is a solid author, but this particular one didn't work for me. It's about a rock climber, so for the title design I used a blocky stone font with a free climber silhouette. The main character is a supposed professional climber who lives in a van and off an inheritance, and he's obsessively determined to free climb an impossible rock wall in Yosemite. I just felt bad for the guy who falls in love with him, and the story became a long, slow slide toward the inevitable. At times I just wanted to shout, "Fall already!" There's a second book after the fall, but I only made it a chapter before tapping out because the main character kept annoying me. Next is Under Your Skin by Lee McCormack, a serial killer vigilante story where the killer teams up with a mortician who covers for him because he once avenged his mother's murder. It was entertaining in the moment, but honestly, at this point, I barely remember the details, just blood, obsession, and gore. Next, Mine by Briley Hart. This was entertaining. She gives us smut, BDSM, and age gap. This young guy who craves dominance meets an older guy online and they hit it off. Once they decide to meet, it turns out the older man is his dad's best friend, one of my favorite tropes. I'm so here for the inevitable drama that is bound to come when the truth comes out. It's the best part. Next, something unusual for me, mainstream young adult romantasy, or marketed as romantasy. Romance plays a role, but there isn't much of it. It's a 4-book series, so I gave it one combined spread for obvious reasons. The writing was gorgeous. For most of the journey, it was a 5-star experience for me, but the ending pulled it down to 4. After 4 long books working toward the conclusion, the ending felt very abrupt and unsatisfying. We follow a cast of no less than 4 or 5 main characters, plus a bunch of secondary characters' point of views. I loved Blue's family, where she's the only non-psychic in a household of psychics. I loved the 4 Raven boys, Gansey, Adam, Ronan, and Noah, and this profound brotherly love they shared. For the title design, I used a raven silhouette and layered the series name across it. There are 2 romantic couples, Gansey and Blue, and Adam and Ronan, but there is very little actual romance. Blue can't kiss Gansey because it's prophesied that he'll die if she does, and Adam and Ronan only get together at the very end. I adored Ronan's protectiveness over Adam, though. On to my final November spread, the only book that gets a full spread this month, The Unlikely Heir by Jax Calder. I'm down to using literal scraps of leftover paper at this point, but I love using every bit. This poor American fella who is 11th in line to the British throne from his dad's side suddenly finds himself bumped up to number 1, because reasons. He is very American and clumsy, doesn't like tea, which is apparently an outrage, and is drowning in public scrutiny. Luckily, the young British Prime Minister is helpful and supportive, and they become close friends. And of course, their relationship goes from friendship to soulmates and love, because otherwise the story wouldn't have been half as interesting. It's all narrated by Gary Furlong, who couldn't be more perfect for this. I know of no narrator who does such a variety of accents as he is capable of. There are so many obstacles between them, and honestly, the fact that the future King of England loves a man is one of the smaller ones. The bigger issue is the political conflict of interest, a royal who's supposed to be neutral falling for the Prime Minister. And I get that, I really do. I was curious to see how this would end and where their relationship and respective roles would go. Unfortunately, what we have learned from recent pop culture in Red, White and Royal Blue and the Swedish show Young Royals, it is that the heir to a throne cannot be gay, which disappoints me. As progressive as these stories want to be, they end up just solidifying the norm of a heterosexual monarch. When in fact, for Sweden at least, a gay monarch is a non-issue. I read an article by a well-renowned Swedish historian where he laid this out very plainly. The same Swedish laws apply to the royal family as well as regular citizens, and in Sweden, same-sex marriage is no different from hetero couples marrying. The children they have through adoption or whatever are legally their children just as much as biological children are. So I was curious to see what direction this story would take. I'm not gonna spoil it for you, you'll have to read for yourself if you want to find out. When it comes to my top read this month, I am torn between The Raven Cycle and The Unlikely Heir. The Raven Cycle, I loved the writing and prose, but the ending disappointed me, while The Unlikely Heir was exactly the opposite. I'll have to dwell on it a bit before I choose. That's it for November. I still have December left with 3 spreads to fill, so I'll see you when it's time to wrap up the year. Until next time, bye!